Okay, the time is 9 a.m. and I'll call the November 23rd, 2023 council meeting to order for the purposes of doing budget. And I'll begin with a land acknowledgement that the City of Fort Saskatchewan is located within Treaty 6 territory and Métis Nation of Alberta District 11, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Nihilwak, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Métis. And we acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. It is because of our treaty relationship that we can live, work, and play on Treaty 6 territory. Thank you. So this morning we will be continuing on with flagged items, and the person who has put the flagged item on may make a brief comment, and then if they wish, they may either ask more questions or put a motion on to initiate discussion and debate. So with that, we are going to begin with item number 5 that we left off, Downtown Development Strategy 710083, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. My concern with your plan is that, based on the information you've given us, we've had 18 years of study and some action. There's no question. I think the downtown core looks way better than it did 18 years ago, and there's been some significant improvements, but there hasn't been any significant economic activity. And I'm just, in my mind, what I wonder is if we wouldn't be better off taking the money that we would allocate for another study and putting it directly into another program or enhancing the programs that we do have to encourage investment in the area. It's that simple. I'm not being critical. I'm showing 18 years of frustration, I guess, as I watch the downtown core in Fort Saskatchewan. We're not alone. Fort Saskatchewan's not alone. I think virtually every community our size in North America has the same problem. Because within a decade, some of the large box stores went across North America and built on the outside of town or on the edge of town, and municipalities eagerly it welcomed the development and the revenue stream from the development, but didn't, in my mind, pause properly to think about the effect that was going to have on the existing areas of the community and what could be done at that time to minimize those long-term impacts of that development. And like I said, we're not alone. I've watched a couple documentaries over the years on TV. It's not good. But nonetheless, I'm of the opinion that all communities our size need a downtown. If we don't have a downtown, where will our community gather for events like July 1st or a Santa Claus parade or something like that? And I'm hard-pressed to imagine that we're going to do it in the Walmart parking lot. So I think the downtown is an asset to the entire community. And it brings character, it brings focus, it brings a sense of history and a sense of oneness, I would suggest, to the community. So with those comments, and I don't have a motion, Mayor Catcher, I was hoping for a discussion on this and maybe something would fall out of it. And I was also hoping for comments from yourself. So with that, I'll be quiet and comment as you see fit, please.
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, thank you so much for letting me kick off today for budget. I think there's a few things I'd like to kind of share. So I would say I understand some of the frustration when saying, Do you
need it a little closer?
Oh, I apologize. I'm typically very loud. So I think there's a few things that I think it's important for us to get across. So I'm thinking that the name Downtown Development Strategy might have been a poor choice of words. the plan for this is not just an overarching theoretical strategy. I think we're all kind of tired of seeing words on a page. We're much more excited about seeing actions actually happen. And so that is the goal for this plan. So when we're talking about research and outreach, as you've seen in some of the documents that we've submitted, we're looking for successful precedents, projects in other areas that we, if we identify that as a type of project we want to bring here, that's kind of what we're saying when we're talking about doing some of that research and outreach. The key goals of this development strategy are intrinsically action focused. It's not just words on a page. We're looking to actively increase that residential density, revitalizing the underutilized spaces, promoting that infill development that we all want, and reducing the commercial vacancy. The structural framework of this strategy is really a continuation of some of the work that's already been done. We're going to be identifying these opportunities, allocating resources effectively, directing engagement, and measuring progress. And so that's why we've kind of structured it as a framework, as that strategy, is to make sure that the work we're doing is more effective. I would also say that the downtown action plan, which I think we've all seen some success with, with the vibrancy, you're starting to see a more beautiful space, a space that's really great for gathering. I think that was really important. Like you said, that's where people gather, is in the downtown. And so I think our first downtown action plan showed a lot of quick wins, a lot of visible pieces that I think were really helpful. I think it was successful. And not only did we get those beautiful spaces, but we also saw engagement from businesses that haven't engaged with the city before. Businesses that really didn't have a lot of contact with are now excited about what's going on. We're starting to really build those relationships in a new way. I would also say that, yes, we've put some money into the downtown, we have, but in the last few years, we've also brought in almost $300,000 in grants that would have otherwise been inaccessible to us. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to be had there.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Macon. There's no motion, so we're not debating anything. It's mostly questions, please.
Sure.
Councillor Macon.
Thank you for your comments, Erin. Although I know that in the next section of this work that we can't see total redevelopment of the downtown, what do you foresee is your measure of success in the short term of going through this project?
Sure. So I think in the absolute initial phases, it's going to be a lot of direct conversations with developers, better understanding. So Fort Saskatchewan in our downtown actually does have a lot of advantages. We already have the great, we've got a grocery store, we have medical facilities, we have schools within walking distance. Those are a lot of things that other downtowns are struggling to get. And so we have those advantages, but why aren't we getting those developments? And so it's having those conversations of, have you thought about Fort Saskatchewan? Is there a barrier that we're not seeing? What is it that you need to make the projects work here in our downtown? So I think that's kind of one of the first steps. I think some of the other steps are really, really targeted to getting that infill. So it's working with developers and landowners. It's, hey, if we help you to create these cell sheets that say what can be built here, what, Fort Saskatchewan has identified as a need, how tall can the building be, kind of solving all of those questions first to help, really put it out and make it an easy decision for a developer to come this way. And so I think those are some things that we're really going to be able to see. I think we're also going to take a really deep look at some of the programs that we've had, the Brownfield program and the residential grant program. We're seeing a lot of interest in those, but we want to see how can we actually take it from interest to shovels in the ground. And so I think that's what the focus of this plan, this strategy, these action items are going to be.
Do you have any, I know that this is difficult to quantify, but do you have any targets for success, like a certain increase to residential infill, a certain increase to, using the underutilized properties or undeveloped areas?
Mm-hmm. I would like to see, and I think that's part of this initial strategy, is coming up with those metrics, the things that we're measuring. We want to make sure we're measuring commercial vacancy. We want to measure how many new residential projects are coming into the downtown, and we want to be talking to the people who are making those investments. Hey, what made you make this investment, so that we can try and capitalize on that and share that word to try and bring more in. So we have identified certain vacant parcels that I think are kind of at key locations that we'd love to start to see that development happening. And I think that will be one of the measurements that we see for success.
Thank you.
Just go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Just to add to Ms. Brush Duncan's comments, the infill would be a key measure of its success, as would be lowering the commercial vacancy rate in the downtown. Right now it's at 15.3% and the city average is at 5%. We'd like to move the downtown closer to the city average. We may not get there within these 2 years, but we would lay the groundwork to hopefully move the needle.
Okay, thanks, Janelle.
Thank you. So I'm next on the speaking order. So over the last number of years, I think we had Dr. Avi Freeman prior to or in around 2007, if not before, who gave a whole bunch of strategies about the beautification and everything. And so we're going back a number of years, but your business case specifically talks about just talking to people. It doesn't talk about action. So I guess my question is, with the people that you have in economic development right now, and you've had a position, why have you not been talking to these people to date?
To your worship, we have been speaking with developers. We've had quite a few that have been interested in different projects in the downtown. So we've been working with them closely, sharing with them as much information as we have, looking at some of our housing studies and pieces like that. So that work is being done, and to have a position be able to continue that work, I think is important. I would say this plan is not just about talking. There are a lot of additional things that would be looked at. Like I said, our incentive programs, do any of them need to be changed? Do we need to add something different to meet those needs? I would say it also would be a lot of that proactive outreach. So we have this parcel, who's going to be the best fit to possibly come in and develop here. And so I think that this is about a really focused resource who's looking to bring the investment specifically into downtown. So, and in this previous position, a lot of the time was spent on developing those gathering spaces and developing a space that is beautiful. And I think we've seen a lot of success. And I think we've seen a lot of private investment kind of coming along too, businesses painting, the sides of or improving their storefronts, adding privately invested murals, things like that. So I do think we were starting to have an impact.
So I guess my second question, when it comes to, you say, well, talk about what they can build on their sites, isn't that already contained within our land use bylaw? For example, the Fort Mall, it already talks about what heights can be, what can be built there, how many stories and things. So why does economic development feel that that's their part of their strategy?
To your worship, I think it's about telling the story and opportunity of each of those sites. Yes, you can go through our land use bylaw and see, okay, for this particular site, this is what could be built. But if we can show what can be built, if we can help to promote that, I think that they're going to have more success.
Okay, I'll come back to you on a round two. So, Councillor Harris?
Mm-hmm.
Is this only questions?
Yeah, unless somebody wants to put a motion on, we can't get into debate. You can put a motion on to refer it to something.
No, I'm not putting on a motion. I
well,
just
then
wanted
it's
to make
questions.
an observation. I have no questions then.
Councillor Abatoye?
Well, I just want to say that's I think the Economic Development Department has done a phenomenal job so far. So the questions are not an indication of, your inability to do your work, because you have, right? But my question is, this specific request is a staff role. Am I correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, yes, the cost for this request lies in having an additional staff resource.
Right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your current your organogram. So can you just paint me a picture of what you currently do? You're the director. Who's your report? What do they do?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, yes, absolutely. So I am the Director of Economic Development. We currently have 2 Economic Development Officer positions, and due to due to the changing economic climate and due to the fact that we are expecting a lot of industrial investment, we've transitioned our positions slightly. So in the past, we've had an economic development officer that's really focused on business retention and expansion, and we've had an economic development officer who's really focused on business attraction. So because of kind of these changes in some of the investments we're hoping to have come into the city of Fort Saskatchewan, now one of the economic development officers is really going to focus on small business and commercial, both attraction and retention. And then we're going to have an economic development officer that is focusing on industry and innovation, infrastructure, kind of those pieces. So in addition to those 3 permanent roles, we currently have 2 temporary roles. So we do have the Downtown Action Plan Coordinator, who's been working on all of the previous projects, and that position is set to end in May. And then we also have a temporary role, our Land Management Advisor, who works with us on our leases, is working with us on an overall kind of land strategy, how we're handling those assets, and that position, I think, has about another year.
Okay, thank you. So you currently have 5, 2 permanent and 2 temporary. So that's a total of 5.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So this position, you talked about. I do appreciate your response. You're talking. We're not really looking at strategy or some documentation. We're looking at getting into action. You don't have the ability to find the resources within your department currently to do this role.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess, do you not?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, if this request is removed and the Downtown Action Plan Coordinator position ends in May, then instead of being able to have that full-time focused resource on the downtown, there will be a decrease in our service levels and what we're able to push out for downtown. And I would be absorbing some of that work. I do have a background with downtowns and revitalization, but we'd be looking at more about, kind of 10% of my time as opposed to having a dedicated resource to really be pushing forward and doing that really proactive outreach and work.
Okay, thank you. I see.
Okay, I'll put you on round 2. Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, sorry. Assuming this goes through, what would reporting look like back to council in the next 2 years? And so, basically, what would we expect to be seeing from you?
Through your worship to Councillor Nguyen. So with the existing downtown incentives, the one for Brownfield and the one for just the development grants for residential for the multifamily and mixed use. We do have it in there that I come back to council once a year annually. So I would think that I would be coming to council annually to let them know what progress we're having, what success we're having, what kind of interest we're having, what action we've seen within that private investment. If council would direct otherwise, I would follow direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Mayor Katcher, I'm going to move that the Downtown Development Strategy request 710083 be removed from the budget. Now I'll speak to that motion.
Okay.
I suspect that I will vote against that motion, but I do believe that it is worthwhile to be able to have a conversation and a free-flowing conversation around this subject. You can tell it's important to, I know to you, but to council and to every resident in the community, I would suggest. So with that, I'll turn the mic over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept that motion. They'll put it up once they have it. Councillor Harris, you're next.
Well, great. I didn't really have any questions initially, and that's why I asked the question, because I sit here and say, when I come downtown, I come downtown to go to a meeting here. There's nothing in the downtown that I particularly am looking for other than a haircut. I go to Home Depot or I go to Home Hardware, and those are the stores that I shop at. I don't care where they are, I'll go to them. But what would bring me down here is, and maybe I go to the odd restaurant, but by and large I don't use those a lot, but occasionally. So when I look at the situation, infill will be great because it'll have people down here, but people will stay down here if there are things for them to do. Kind of like what's happened with the conversation in the city of Edmonton or other areas, 104th Street development strategy, for example. Mm-hmm. And so, it's a chicken and egg. And so if I ask you a question is, well, ultimately what's better, build it and they will come, or have them come and then build it? So that's the kind of the quandary that I see here. And infill is ultimately about adding residential, right? Is that? So there's the question.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Harris, one of the primary objectives is to bring people downtown, living downtown. The more residents we have, those residents will be supporting those downtown businesses. So I think having that increased residential density in downtown is vital for the longevity of and the success of our downtown businesses.
Yeah, and you know what? I fully support all of that. But right now, as I just alluded to in my comments, I don't come downtown because there's nothing that I really need downtown. Mm-hmm. And so what is it that we need? Do we actually understand what we need downtown, that ultimately, that if we did have 1,000 more people living down here, they would say, gee, this is a skookum place to be. I really want to be here. Yeah, I can get everything I want. We're not there right now, but I guess to your point, Councillor Kelly, yeah, we want to have a vibrant downtown. And the things that we've done up to this point in time make a lot of sense to me. Mm-hmm. But a pretty street is a pretty street. A parklet is a parklet. Mm-hmm. Those are small things, but they are incremental, to say the least. So, I'll probably vote against this, but we still have to continue to focus what this really means in terms of finding that balance between bringing people down here and giving them the things that will keep them here and attract other people who live in the community. A lot of people live in West Park. A lot of people live in South Fort. Do they ever come downtown? They're probably like me. There's nothing they need down here. I want to be able to say I support the downtown core, but it comes down to what do I need? Mm-hmm. What can I actually avail myself in terms of buying either a service, good, or a product? And so right now, I'm just indicative of probably like a lot of people that say, I can get a new tool and I can go to Home Hardware or I can go to Home Depot or, I'll get my hair cut down here. But what else is there? So that's kind of, and I say that only by reflection on the fact that a lot of people are probably thinking the way I do about downtown. It's nice to have, but what are they prepared to do about it? So if this strategy will help us focus those discussions and that activity, then I support it. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm next on the speaking order. Excuse me. So I'm on the verge of actually supporting this motion because I think that we need to have a conversation about this at council, even at our strategic planning session. We've had temporary positions for how long? You started out in that, and then now we have another one. And it's primarily talking is what it is. But I know we talk to the developers. I talk with them all the time. You sit there at the table and you listen and hear what their problems are. It's not the land use planning. It's probably more their focus if they're looking, they've got CMHC requests into the federal government, not having success with that. So they're looking for other incentives beyond what just the city is offering. So when we talk about are incentives working or not? Absolutely, there's interest in it, but they're also looking for interest from other levels of government to be able to build on these properties. We've got the old Fort Station, we've got where the new Dollar Tree is going, and we have the Husky lands that are available there. So other than that, we've got a couple vacancies, and then we've got the lands beside Twice But Nice and beside Dependable Printers there, and those two parcels have been vacant now since 1990. So if we haven't had the conversation with anybody up to this point in time, I'm not sure how you're going to go out and reel a fish in to be able to get them into that. I mean, if this is a permanent position, let's just call it what it is. But then I understand it has to come out of pay as you go. But I think we need something more if we're going to get people to develop. I agree with Councillor Harris. People want to come down here for events. We don't support the downtown business. They used to bring the fall festival in. We gave them $5,000 for that, and they'd have thousands of people down here. So to me, I think, you know, if we're talking about $85,000, I think we can do a lot of bolster what we're doing downtown with events and getting people down here. When you have people down here, then you actually get people saying, well, maybe I do want to open a business down here. So I'm on the cusp of saying, yeah, I actually believe we need to remove this, and because it's out of reserve, revisit what we want from it, and then come back, and if we want to put it back in as a council, then put it in as to what we believe is actually going to be actionable. So that's where I'm sitting with this one. Councillor Blizzard.
Good morning, Erin. Thanks for the comments so far. I've been doing a lot of listening, but I had one thought, because I too struggle with always spending downtown, and I do see the value. I really feel we do need a downtown, but I'm going to put you on a bit of a spot here and see if you can think of businesses. So if there's a business opening, they usually have seen Fort Saskatchewan somewhere, whether it's some fair or some conversation. Gail's an excellent ECDev person. But I have to decide where I want it. And can you say, like, when I look at businesses, we've seen them come and go. And honestly, some of the businesses downtown, I don't believe they were influenced by economic development. They just saw empty store space, maybe a better price than on the highway where it costs more. Any idea how many businesses started downtown because of economic development nudging them in that direction?
Through your worship to Councillor Blizzard, I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So you're wondering how many businesses have been influenced by kind of some of the work that's been done downtown and have chosen to locate?
The work being done downtown, talking to you, because I definitely know, you know, we have a new bakery in town. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like they knew the downtown. They weren't influenced. Maybe there was some incentive, but they would have done that location anyways. So which businesses, or are there businesses downtown because of your influence, your department, I shouldn't say just you?
I would say that I think there are businesses that have come downtown recently because they see a place that is important to the community and to the city. They've seen a place where there's been some investment. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of I would say new projects and enthusiasm. So I think there are people who really appreciate that and kind of want to be where that is. I would also say a lot of the businesses that come downtown are unique. They're more of a destination business, and I think that it fits for them to be someplace downtown. We do work with people who are calling and saying, hey, you know, do you know, I've got this idea for a business. Where can I locate? Where, you know, what can I do? And so we do work with a lot of people who are interested in starting a business. A lot of them do work with realtors and things like that, but we absolutely let them know, oh, we're aware of these spaces. and we let them know, like, here's some of the programs that are going on, downtown, or the programs that the city's offering. Some of our actual grants and programs like that a lot of new businesses take advantage of are available kind of no matter where you're locating. But a lot of these kind of new businesses like the idea of starting out in a place like downtown where there is a lot of support.
And are rents lower? I know they used to be, but do you know the rents in the downtown area? Are they still a chunk less than going on a highway?
Through your worship to Councillor Blizzard, a lot of the rental spaces, to my understanding, are lower than in some of those kind of commercial highway frontages.
Okay. Now listen to some more questions.
Okay, Councillor Abatoye.
Thank you again. So the request before us is for 2.25 years. So I guess my question is, what's your long-term plan for this role? Is it to become full-time or to see how it goes and figure it out?
So through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, I think that's a great question. So my understanding is that when the initial Downtown Action Plan coordinator and that strategy was designed and requested, it was for a short-term, a temporary position. That's the position that I started out in. And so with that Downtown Action Plan, like I said, it was really for those kind of quick, visible wins to create those gathering spaces for people. And so for this strategy, because it is very targeted on bringing investment, we thought that a temporary role to really focus on this development and this initial promotion and to get things rolling was important. And then we would need to see, is it having the action and the success that we want? And so instead of committing to a full-time role, long term, we wanted to really put a strong emphasis now to get action now. And so that's how this was designed.
Okay. So is this a role that you need downtown revitalization experts in, or are you going to be recruiting from maybe the person that's doing the downtown action plan? Is this like a specific expertise that's required for this role?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, I don't know that I would comment on if it's going to be the same person, continuing on. It's something
my
that
question
I'd like
is, do you need an expertise, like someone as an expert in downtown revitalization for this role?
We are definitely looking, this role will require very specific skill sets. They need to be able to engage and understand and kind of with the developer, that developer speak, I would say. And we need someone who can go out and actively promote these opportunities that are in downtown. So those are very specific things that we're looking for. And I think understanding how downtowns work, how infill works, it's a very different skill set than someone who's building a big project with, limitless land, next to, the new neighborhoods and things like that. So we are looking for someone who has that focus on downtown and that understanding of how things are a little bit different when you're looking at infill and when you're looking in these types of areas.
Okay. My final question is, so how important is downtown revitalization to you? Because I look at your budgets and it's less than 10% of your total budget. So how important is downtown revitalization?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, the downtown, I think, continues to be a focus in the MDP, in our strategic plan, as well as that focus program for economic development. I think people see the importance of downtown, like it's been mentioned. It's the gathering space. It's everybody's neighborhood. Everybody comes, downtown. I might live in another area, but I'm downtown multiple times a week because of, dance and the library and all these events and things like that, because that's the lifestyle I have with young children right now. I would say that downtown is important for economic development because it's a place where smaller businesses can come and really find success. It is that destination. When you go visit someplace, you're not visiting commercial developments typically along the highway. You're there because you want that character, that sense of place. And I think that that's what downtown offers. And so it is important, I think, for the success of economic development in a city to have a great downtown.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but my point, though, for that question is if downtown revitalization is really important, then maybe we need to be investing a bit more into the downtown, right? And I obviously want to be support the motion. I think that this is necessary work that needs to be done in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon.
Thank you. I support the position, not the motion in this case. I do get, the feeling that, we can't keep investing the money. But I do look at it as that right now is not the time to lose that momentum. I think that what's been presented to us is a lot of successes in the first phase of what has been happening over the past couple of years. And the next phase is something different. Economic development isn't asking to continue to do the same things with this position that they were doing before. It's moving on to the next step. And so I don't think that this is the point where we stop that momentum and take a step back. I think that we need to keep going to find success. I think any stop at this point would be detrimental to our downtown. I do think that we need to uphold this investment for now. Are we going to be able to continue it time after time? If there was a request continuing next time, again, I think we would have to continue to take a really good look at the expected outcomes for that. But at this point, I do wholly support continuing the momentum and keep going with what's expected with this next phase of work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nguyen.
One more question, then I'll comment on the motion. The reserve allocation looks like an optimal balance for ongoing in a position of this salary requirement or this funding requirement. What would reserves be allocated to should this motion get passed? And maybe you can speak to other initiatives that were considered for reserves.
Through your worship to Councillor Nguyen, at this time, I have not, designated where the reserves would go instead of downtown. That would be something that I would consider in the future. But as downtown has been a priority for economic development, that's why it was allocated for this position and for this strategy.
Okay, and that's good to know. I wasn't sure if there were other programs or other funding allocations being considered with this. I do support the ongoing work being done. Obviously, the downtown has changed quite a bit in the last few years due to your work, and there's new activity and new successes being seen. I hope that that this position will be able to see some measurable metrics of success that obviously aren't easy to quantify at sometimes, but we'll see an evolution of downtown and be able to attract some more investment with infill and some commercial or lower commercial vacancy rates if that's in the cards, and which I really hope to see. So I won't be supporting this motion and look forward to the work underway.
Okay, thank you. I'm next in the speaking order again. A couple things. So we talk about beautiful space. 100th Avenue is beautiful. 104th that they've just done. I've driven down there and there's wider sidewalks. There's no trees. There's been nothing beautiful. Do you know, working with the project people, are they going to do anything that's beautiful? Because we saw a picture of it before, and if I look at the picture of it after, all they did was widen the sidewalks, and there's nothing that looks beautiful about it.
Through your worship to your worship, my understanding is that there will be trees. It was just when the project was brought to the stage where trees could go in, they were worried about the weather, but I will ask if Grant Shaper.
Good morning, Your Worship. There will be trees planted along the streetscape. It was just came down to end of season, making sure that we could plant them at the right time. So they'll be going in the spring. Okay,
because it looks pretty bare and ugly right now. So, thank you. Second question that I have is if I vote against this motion, can there be a commitment to work with the Downtown Business Council people to actually have them involved? Because I think they bring something to the table, and I think that they feel left out of any conversation. And when they bring something to the city, I don't think they're feeling the love of the city. So can we get that commitment?
To your worship, absolutely. We have met with the Downtown Business Council several times, and I would say that we've actually had a lot of support from the Downtown Business Council for some of the projects that we've worked on. So absolutely, continued detailed engagement with them would be something that would be important, as would engagement with the chamber and other downtown businesses as well.
Okay, and then I guess my other commitment that I would like is when you reel in a fish, so to speak, can you let us know that you guys actually did it and it wasn't just initiated by somebody else? I think Councillor Burgett makes a very good point. You've got Fort Station who's working on their own. You've got the other one who's working on their own to get people. And I know there's going to be businesses go in. Since the fire, there's revitalization that's happening there. So you can't take credit for that. But, the ones that you actually go out and bring in, either let us know that you're the one responsible, otherwise we just anticipate it's simply the development community themselves that are bringing these businesses in. So I'll leave it with that. Councillor Blizzard, then we'll go back to Councillor Kelly for close.
I agree. Toot your own horn if that's what's needed, because I think we need to see that and justify the positions. So I do have one more. And I thought I saw this in here somewhere, but it could have been from another department. How are we compared to comparable cities? Leduc, I don't know, Spruce Grove, they spend more than we do. But Stony Plain, in the economic development department, because I don't feel we're huge in that, but we have grown. In the 10 years ago, we had one person.
Through your worship to Councillor Blizzard, that's information that I can bring back to you. I know most of the economic development kind of staffing in our immediate area. We work with them quite regularly. I think it also depends on who's being brought in kind of on the temporary side. And if you consider that a lot of these organizations have, for instance, dedicated marketing folks and things like that. So I think the positions are different, but I would be happy to bring that information back for you.
Sure, just for information, I'd like to see it. And I think my concern and why I asked that is, you're asking for this as a temporary again, maybe, and we never see entirely, no matter where you work, you never see all the different jobs and what each position does. But if you're so busy, each person already, maybe this needs to be more of a permanent set of reserves, more of an ongoing, and not just downtown. Maybe it needs to be downtown plus, so that it can be, worked on continuously. Because if every year you come back for an extension of a temporary, it really is ongoing.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Kelly to close. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Listen, thank you, everybody. I think great discussion. A couple of small questions. I'm unaware of the timeline for this particular proposal. When will it start? When will it wrap up? And what are you bringing to council when it wraps up?
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, this is something that we will begin with earnest kind of in Q1 to at least start some of that research so that we can really make sure that we are moving quickly. I understand that that's important, that we get to those action items as quickly as possible. I believe this position, or this strategy with the corresponding position, is about 2 years. So I would say I would like to commit to coming to council kind of at that 1 year mark, showing what progress has been done, and then at the end having a complete report that says this is what was complete and these were the results that we've obtained since then.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming, can you tell me if in fact the downtown discussion is going to be on the agenda for our upcoming strategy session?
Yeah, through your worship, the intent with the session is to go through sort of line by line each item in the strategic plan, and the downtown is in the existing strategic plan. So it is already a topic of discussion.
So council will have at that particular point in time at least one more opportunity to massage this, beat this up, talk about this, and maybe voice some different opinions.
Yeah, it actually needs to be talked about. I mean, that session was supposed to happen already, and I had the day planned out, but the existing item in the strategic plan talks about implementation of the downtown action plan. And I would say for the most part, when you look at phase one, we've come and gone with that. So, or we're getting close to that point. So the question to council was going to be, what do you see as being next? You know, and so we would have that conversation.
Okay, thank you. It's not an easy job. I fully get it. My wife and I had, I'm going to bore everybody for just a minute, the great opportunity due to a family wedding to visit Niagara-on-the-Lake this summer. A relatively small community with a downtown that's absolutely gorgeous. All old, all traditional, beautiful, and flooded with people. It's so busy with tourists at Niagara-on-the-Lake for every parking spot in downtown, and that's 20 blocks by 20 blocks at least, is $5 an hour revenue to the city. And I pulled up their financial statement. 40% of their annual budget comes from parking. So I make that point because to recognize that every community is different, and it's not an easy job. It has been my position, my thought, and my thoughts remain unchanged, is it will require an investment of this community to get this thing tipped and moving in the right direction. And the work we've done to date has helped. I absolutely, I'm not trying to take away from it. But sooner or later, and I'm telling you now, it's sooner than later, action has to take place. And council needs to decide what type of investment we're prepared to make to tip the scale on this thing and get it moving. And I'm more than happy to support your motion. I said at the outset I probably wouldn't vote for my own motion, and I was serious. But I look forward to another discussion in our strategy session and ongoing discussions over the next year. So I assume when you wrap up stage one or the last stage in roughly May of next year, you'll report back to council as well?
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, absolutely.
Perfect. That gives us yet another opportunity to talk. With that, Mayor Katzer, I'm done. Thank you.
The motion is now closed. Please cast your vote, and this is to remove it from the budget.
Jennifer, again, analog.
So the motion is defeated unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Number 6, Fire Station Validation Study. Councillor Kelly. Okay, go ahead.
All righty. Now that I've got the lay of the land, so we can have a discussion. Mayor Katzer, I have a motion.
Okay.
I move that the Fire Station Validation Study Plan 23-0057 be removed from the budget.
All right, I'll accept that motion. You can speak to your motion.
You bet. And like the last one, I'm not at all certain I'll vote for my own motion. But we need to have a discussion. I'm going to start my comments and express my concern over the last couple of years and what my experience with consultants that have been brought forward to council to report on various matters. I anticipate that this particular study will be fact-based. and not biased by the desires of the fire department to have the newest and the shiniest, but that economics will be a major part of the discussion and the consideration? Sorry, that is a question, yes.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Kelly, yes, definitely looking at development and looking at call volume as well on that side, and the 10-minute response that we currently have. That will be in there, as well as, like I said, options with costing for the options.
And thank you. I got one more question, Mayor Catcher, and you just touched on it, Fire Chief, the options. I think we need to look at, as a starting point, one of your options, something that is very basic, meets the minimum needs, but is scalable. In other words, that structure could be added to or built on top of or beside of and still remain functional as the city grows, but the spot could be further developed and not lose the utility of that very basic starting point for a second fire hall. Will that be possible?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Kelly, that's something we can look at with the consultant when we do the study. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm done for now, Mayor Catcher.
Okay, thank you. The motion is open for discussion and debate. So I guess the only question that I have is the validation study. Is the validation study, again, to determine if the location by Heartland Ford is still the right location, or is it to validate that maybe it should be somewhere else?
To your Worship, no, that I think it was, can't remember the exact date, but we came back, if you'll remember, I think it was the Dark Horse report that we did for the joint collaboration study with Strathcona County. And it had the recommendation to move it a couple blocks, and it only made about 1% difference in the response time for the overall call. So having it making only a 1% difference, the thought process is that where the location is will hopefully suit us for the next 50 years.
Okay, so I guess I'm reading this again. So what are we getting for the validation study?
To your Worship, so the study through the fire master plan and the recommendations in the fire master plan, it had a lot of recommendations on a training center, emergency operations center, as well as another station for the calls on that side of the city, as well as the growth on that side of the city. It didn't go into a lot of detail on costing or type of station. Is it a 2-bay? Is it a 3-bay? Service level? And so that's some of the detail that we want to look at for out there, and really look at, again, our current hall is 43 years old, so look at the same thing, the next 50 years based on road networks and call volume again, and looking at what we have for growth out that way.
Okay.
Your Worship.
Oh, go ahead.
If I could add to Mr. Martin, after that work is done, we will use the study to create Class 5 cost estimates, and those estimates are important because we need them in order to build the amount into the levy. So that is another important outcome from the validation study.
Okay. I think the titles all are just getting us muddled up. So it actually brings us to design or conceptual. So, and I'm okay with that. All right. Thank you. Councillor Abatoye?
Thank you. So 50,000 for design.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Bertoya.
I think my question is actually to Ms. Duguid-Smith because of her last comment.
I would say it's 50,000 for very preliminary design. We're not going to be anywhere close to ready for shovels, but we'll be at a point where we have a Class 5.
Right, because I was looking at the 10-year capital plan, and we have $2 million for the 25 budgets. I'm assuming that's for design, right? And 19.8 million for in 2026. I'm assuming that's to start construction. And we also have a fire services master plan that was done in 23, a co-location fire hall study with Strathcona. I think that's what you just referred to. That was done in 22. Fire underwriter study in 2020. fire department station location study in 2016. And we have the land. We know we need a second fire station. Why do we need to validate the site we currently have? Right, because we already know that we're going to start design like in 25. So I'm just trying to understand why we need to do that. Like I heard what you said in response to the mayor, but I'm just trying to make sense of it.
Your worship, through to Council Albertoya, I think for this again, it just comes back to the recommendations in the fire master plan and what do we want on that site, and having this validation.
So why can't this be part of the design work that's going to be done in 25?
Again, they'll give us those high-end estimates on the three types of designs that we're looking at: the basic station, the two bay that Councillor Kelly referred to, expandable to the next one, which would have our training center, as well as the station, and the third would be again that multi-use station that we'd be looking at, and having those Class D estimates or Class 5 will have the ability to give us the levy information we need to move forward.
Okay, just Mr. Fleming.
Yeah, sorry, through your worship, I didn't want to interrupt in the middle of a line of questioning. So just maybe to frame it in another way, or to put it more bluntly, because we've had a series of, what's that?
I appreciate blunt.
Yeah, so we've had a series of conversations amongst ourselves through the last couple of weeks about how the way we title and brand things it's having a huge influence on the discussion that happens amongst council. So some real learnings for me and for us. Yes, calling something a manager, calling something a strategy, validation study. I would say it's known that we do not meet we don't need to validate the need for it if it's our intent to continue to meet the service levels that we aspire to. We know that, that's fact. Mm-hmm. And we've already done enough technical work to know that the location is correct.
Right.
So what needs to happen, council needs to make a final decision whether or not they want to actually build the fire hall. So the question is, what does council need to get themselves to a place to make that decision? And so there needs to be a little bit of a discussion around what's the scope and size of this fire hall, because there are options there. There's different kind of levels. I know it's the desire for our fire services to have a training center here, and I think council needs to be able to get a little bit of information to go through that discussion in detail. And it's a requirement of us, if we want to include this in the levy, because council has to make that decision as well, that you have to have a little bit of technical supporting information. I do believe it actually has to be like an external technical study to get you a Class 5 estimate, so that if you want to include that in the levy, you can do that. So this process is really just about helping council walk through that journey so that decisions can be made.
Okay, thank you. So did you say that we're going to get 3 options, Fire Chief? We're going to be getting 3 options, and then we'll make a decision from there. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris.
So the conversation is really important from an overall strategic planning standpoint and land use standpoint. I'm almost of the opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, that maybe the validation needs to be, should we just build the best fire hall that we can see for the future in that new location, and that the one downtown, which was fine 43 years ago because that was the center of the epicenter of our community, should that not be the validation, that we don't just put a 2-bay or a 3-bay, but put a brand new facility? Because is it not in the middle of our growth in the future in that location? We're going to grow south, not north. So would that not be the best location for us? Great. New fire station, and then the current station gets downgraded to actually be a backup. Does that make sense? Have you considered that?
Your worship, through to Councillor Harris, we have talked about that. Again, that the new station be more of a bigger station, that multi-use. Again, that projection down the road, that 50-year, and look at the call volume types that we've kind of already looked at, and where our calls are occurring in the city. And then as far as downgrading with resources and staffing, that we would definitely have to look at a smaller scale fire hall here, and what resources we put down here.
Well, when I look at it, that ultimately makes more sense to me to validate as to whether that should be a bigger, more fully encompassed in the middle of the development of the community for the future. That's the validation. So you've answered that for me. So I don't see it as a 2-bay or 3-bay. I see it as a big bay. And ultimately that will meet our needs in the future. And then validate what we're going to do with the current fire hall in the future. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this thing. And I think it's important that we continue with this particular study because we've evolved through to add additional staffing. We have a full-time fire department now. Let's resource the thing properly from an operational standpoint so that we can ensure the safety of the community. So that's validation in my mind.
Okay, thank you. So that's everybody. So I'll go to Councillor Kelly for your final comments and close.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, you and I couldn't be more opposite on this particular matter. My view on this is that we've just now, in the last year or two, and with probably the last, very recently, we're on the cusp of needing the new station, a second station. We're not on the cusp of needing a brand new replacement building, nicer and bigger than the one we already have. And that was back to my comment about something very small that's scalable. Now, I want to qualify that remark and concern I have with I don't know how, and I'm expecting administration to train us or inform us how the off-site levy would work. If we just build a 2-bay station there, can we only off-site levy a 2-bay station? Do we have to build a 6-bay station to be able to scale this thing up and levy it from the start? I don't know that information. So that's yet to come. But I'm leaning toward, personally, the smaller the better for the time being, because we're just at the start of needing. There's not 20,000 people living over there yet. And we can scale this as time goes on. So I'll leave it at that. And thank you for your comments, Fire Chief. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. The motion is now closed, and the motion is to remove it from the budget. And the motion is unanimously defeated. Okay, so we're going to skip number 7 and we're going to move that one to the end so that we can, thank you very much, Chief Martin, so that we can go in camera for that one after. So we will go to number 8, Utilities Waste Audit, and that one is mine. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put the motion on to remove it from the budget at this point in time in order to have discussion and debate on it. So I'll turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Blizzard. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Catcher.
Speak in favor.
Would you like to speak in favor of this motion?
Well,
on this motion?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is I would actually like to probably ask a few more comments and have some discussion and debate on it. So with the waste audit, it says in here that to get data on user trends and identify opportunities to reduce landfill contributions. And it says it involves the going to household waste to assess a collector's user's ability. So I believe I'm correct in that you would go take some trucks and you would empty their black bins or all of their bins into a truck, bring it to Public Works and assess what they have in their garbage.
Your Worship, that is correct.
Okay, so I guess my question comes down to, we've been promoting recycling, reuse, we have the eco station. Do you believe that this is going to seriously change anybody's habits?
Your Worship, administration heavily relies on this data to kind of dictate what we communicate and how we communicate. If our communications aren't resonating with residents, we see a decline in their sorting habits. Since the pandemic, I think that's actually played more of a role in this than we anticipated. We have seen landfill tonnages go up, a decrease in green cart set out, and more calls generally coming into our waste hotline just to say that the program doesn't work. Without this data, we can't prove or disprove whether they are actually sorting. We want to make decisions based on, facts and data rather than assumptions. And right now we're making a lot of assumptions because the last firm data we have is from 2018, and everything has changed. Mindsets have changed since then.
Okay, and then final question that I'll ask is, and I know when I drive around, so the previous contractor, he wouldn't pick anything up if the lid was this much open. This one, I watched him as I was driving behind, not going around him, was picking up everything. So is he actually encouraging people by doing that to go against what your protocols are?
Through your worship, part of this process would be to refine our communications and reiterate our collection rules so that we can get a little bit more strict with this once again. We have seen a decline in rule following, as well as an increase, unfortunately, in illegal dumping in parks bins. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abetoye.
Thank you. Sadie, the companies that currently collect our waste, whether it's the black bin, blue bags, or whatever, do we get any kind of reports from them?
through your worship to Councillor Abetoye, we get monthly tonnage reports. So on our invoices each month, they provide us with the total tonnage that went to landfill, the total tonnage that went to the organics processing facility, and the total tonnage that went to the recycling facility.
And that's it. They wouldn't tell you, especially with the blue, they wouldn't tell you like the quality or anything like that.
We typically don't get that information, although administration has reached out directly to the processor and they can give us an average. So they can't tell us specifically what Fort Saskatchewan's material looks like, but they will typically give us a regional average.
Right. Okay. Because I feel like that's data that we should be able to get that for that service, right? Thank you. My second question is, so the previous audits we had, how did we do them? Because if I recollect, I think we used some students, right? Okay.
Through your worship, in 2018, when we did the last comprehensive audit, it was the first year that the program was implemented. So we did actually have 4 summer students helping us out that year. So we did hire a consultant, and then myself and the 4 summer students did the actual sorting of the material.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I actually wouldn't be supporting this motion. I think that this is information that we need to know. We don't get that information from the vendors that collect our waste, and I think this is information that the community needs to know. So I wouldn't be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Harris.
So Sadie, obviously we get lots of information and that sort of stuff. So briefly, would you suggest that our community is not doing a good job in relation to sorting, diverting, and ultimately taking advantage of the fact that, well, we had to go to the cart system anyways. I think we had to in any event. But is our community not supporting this?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, I would say the majority of the community is doing a very good job. And we do have support from, again, the majority of the community. Unfortunately, the impact of the few that don't sort properly or participate as they should kind of accumulates over time. I mean, contamination is a big problem, especially in the organics bin. So, I mean, overall, I think we're doing very well. I do think that there's a percentage of our households that we can target a little bit more directly and clearly to see greater results.
Yeah, I suspect that those people are going to be recalcitrant regardless. There are people that just don't care in our community to do anything, and this is work. You have to actually, well, you shouldn't have to think about it, but you have to. And so I think from that standpoint, if we can identify the true offenders in this regard, we need to work with them specifically to do what we can to get them on the right track. Will you get 100% compliance? I suspect not, but as close to and reduction in the contamination, I think, is really crucial from that standpoint. I think we need to validate it. So maybe it comes back, as you say, Mr. Fleming, it's the terminology we use. So we need to validate that from that standpoint and ultimately take steps to convince everybody in the community that is in everybody's best interest to do a better job in this regard. When I drive around on garbage day in my area, I see lots of blue bags out now. And, you know, when you're out for a walk, it looks like people are doing a pretty good job of putting stuff. You never know in terms of the green. And I'm glad we've got that green because I fill my green and I stop that. I'm almost afraid that the contractor's not going to take it all. He's going to not dump it or shake it hard enough to get it all out of there because I pack it in there like you wouldn't believe. And I suspect a lot of people probably do. So anyways, no, I will not be supporting the request to remove this because I think it's just an ongoing part of doing business and the analysis you had to do to support that. So.
Thank you very much. And I do have a couple of questions and statements. I know we had a good discussion yesterday. You know, I'm a poster child for this. We've recycled since day one before there was any collection, and I know it can be done. I think we have to keep working on this. When we get some of this information, or I guess even before that, do we find there's areas of the city that are more of a concern? Is there, you know, areas that maybe, I don't want to specify, but, you know, low income, high income, is somebody more likely to not do this?
Through your worship to Councillor Blizzard, when we think we have a trend nailed down, something happens that kind of disproves that. So overall, I would say no. I believe it's the mindset of the individuals in the household that determine whether or not the program is utilized to its full potential.
Do we still go into the schools to help? Because I think sometimes when kids bring it home, the parents become more aware and, you know, then there can be buy-in through the children.
Through your worship, so we were doing in-person presentations prior to the pandemic. Those have not resumed, but we do supply a package to grade 4 teachers that's Fort Saskatchewan specific. So the information is still getting relayed, prepared for and provided by the city, but presented by the teacher.
Okay. And not seeing anyone else. I'll have one more. So do we fine for contamination, or how do we deal with it? If we come across someone, I know we don't regularly look, but, you know, you happen to be out walking or someone reports it. I don't know.
We do work pretty closely with municipal enforcement. Actually issuing a penalty is our last resort. Municipal enforcement typically provides educational material, kind of reiterates some facts from the waste bylaw, and that typically motivates the household to avoid contaminating their cart. So yeah, I actually don't recall if we've ever issued a penalty, but we have worked with a lot of households using municipal enforcement resources.
And we actually have that as an available, though? We could issue a penalty?
We could, yes, under the waste bylaw.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Macon.
Thank you. I do support the audit. Garbage is something that I talk about more than I want to when I'm out in the community, and I'm always happy to have that conversation with residents. We're a busy family of 4, and we can do it. And I know that our community can do it as well. And I think that the information that comes back from the audit really helps us in those conversations and what we can be doing better. So I do support the audit, so I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other, anyone on the list. Mayor Ketcher to close.
Okay, thank you. And today's the day that nobody's offended when we put these motions on because, as been said, it's about having the conversation. It's about being able to have some free flow discussion and debate on it. So I have been convinced. I think you've done a good job convincing me. I hope, though, that through the audit, as you're moving forward, that there is going to be an opportunity to maybe do more education of the public. I agree with members of council who have talked about it. I think the majority of the city does a good job, and it's just frustrating when people just don't care. The problem what I see is not just in our garbage bins, it's on our streets That's where I really get annoyed, and I don't know how we get people to stop littering, because it seems like it's getting worse and worse when you walk down from the convenience stores. You know, you just see more and more litter is being thrown out. So I think there is an educational component that has to come with this. And you're right, the schools aren't doing it the way it used to be. We used to have an environmental advisory commission that went out and really hammered it in the community. So I think, you know, maybe there's the next step of how we get the education part done again. So with that, I'm good.
All right, the motion is closed. Please cast your votes.
And the motion is defeated 6-1. So that's good. Okay. Do the next one, user fees. We'll go to 10. Am I looking for a break from anybody or? Okay, so we'll recess for 10 minutes. So 10:25. It's 10:15 right now. 10:25, we'll come back. Okay, the time is 10:25, and we will resume the regular council meeting for budget. So the next item is user fee and charges for discussion on additional Black Carts garbage bin fee. That one was flagged by myself, so I'll turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor. I shouldn't have flagged all these. I'm going to make the motion. Okay, so I'm, Mr. Kaiser, can you put the motion up? So I'm going to move that the fee for the additional black bin be increased. I think I'll just wait for the dollar amount to pop up. Be increased to $17.20. And speaking to this motion, as we just heard, we have a lot of people that put out a lot more garbage, where our goal is to actually reduce garbage consumption. And right now we're subsidizing, the rest of us are subsidizing people having a second black bin. And I just believe that if you're going to use that service, then you should pay what the cost is. So I'm quite comfortable in having the user pay for that one. Oh, right. Should be down here.
All right, I'll accept that motion, and actually I'll speak to it first, because I agree that we should up the rate to what is actually used. When I see 2 black bins, I think we have someone that's not participating. We were a family of 8 for a number of years ago, but before we even had bins, and I know our garbage bins were a lot smaller at the time. And we never needed to fill up the black bin. And I know it's bi-weekly now, but we had us quite half the size or less bin. And because we fully recycled, and this was before composting, so there's no reason that you would need 2 bins. How do we treat, though, if there's 2 households, so a basement rented out? Do they each get their individual bin?
Through your worship, to Councillor Blizzard, they can subscribe to a full set of second carts, actually, if they are a registered secondary suite.
Okay, so if they're not registered, they get the one, so then you just get the one. The other question I have, because this just happened in our family, my daughter bought a house in Fort Saskatchewan. The owners, and I probably wouldn't even think about it, if I moved, I would take my little compost bucket with me, and she called and she said they don't supply it. Is it available? What do we do for new homeowners? Because if someone says, well, I'm not buying in, I wasn't given this, and...
Through your worship, we do have a stock, and it typically comes as a package deal. Like if somebody moves into a house, they get a black card, a green card, and a kitchen catcher is what they're called. For new residents moving into an existing home, they can call the city and we will typically deliver one free of charge, just as a...
She was told no, so whoever she talked to, so I'll tell her to call again if she still needs one, but...
I'll add that on my to-do list.
Okay. And that's all I have for now. Councillor Harris?
You know, my kind of stance on this is that I don't believe we need to give anybody a second bin. If we establish a standard by which that's the amount of garbage you get to put out every 2 weeks, you got to live within that means, or you make your own trip to the recycle station and pay the fee to get rid of it. And there are times when maybe that makes sense. But I think I can live with the fact that if we increase the fee appropriately relative to what we're trying to achieve by way of diversion of waste management or waste from landfills, then we can give people an extra bin. But as long as the fee is relative to the fact that they are not solving part of the problem, they're adding to the problem. So I can support the increase in that context, but we need to continue to educate people in relation to diverting, and maybe with the extended producer responsibility, we will see less stuff ending up in our black bins as opposed to even blue. But hopefully we can move in that regard. So I support the increase in that regard, and then it gives people who really can't do it, and I've had some people tell me that they've got big families and they just can't do it. I've offered to go over and give them some advice in relation to diversion, or to suggest that you are available to do that, or somebody of your like. So I'll support it from that standpoint, and if it's the right, is it the right amount for a secondary? So I just have to touch base on that.
For your worship to Councillor Harris, yes, this $17.20 was calculated at cost recovery.
Okay, what's the basic fee? That's all included in the one fee for waste management, right?
Could you clarify your question?
Well, so we charge everybody a fee, and that includes blue, green, and black. And that's X per month. Remind me what that is. And a portion of that is for black.
Well, through your worship, the fee for 2024 will be addressed in the following flag, but currently it's $28.25.
Yeah,
per
a
month.
portion of that, and you can break it down to blue, green, and black. Okay. So this is just for that extra cart for those people that just can't do it, and then it's a fee that hopefully is enough to encourage them, maybe not to need it.
That is correct.
Okay, good. I'll support it then.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. You answered my question, but so my subsequent question or new question is why $17.20 and why not $20? I mean, truly, if we're trying to initiate action, why wouldn't we initiate action? And that'd be a question for Mayor Katcher. So if you want to take a second and tell me it makes sense or not, please do.
I just asked him what the fee was for the motion.
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, if I may comment. So the fee was updated to $17.20 based on our calculation of full cost recovery based on the revised fees and charges procedure. But we can certainly increase that cost to discourage folks from using a second card if council wishes. There's nothing saying we can't. This was just administration's approach.
And that's the school I grew up in. You set your fees to accomplish your ends. And I'm not going to die on this poll, but Mayor Katcher, would you take a friendly amendment to $20?
No, I won't.
Then I'm not going to waste everybody's time. I have one other question or comment. The conclusion of the last go-around with yourself here, just a couple minutes ago, there was some comments made about the lid open and are we going to start discouraging that? I got to tell you, I have a problem if the dumpster doesn't unload the bin because the lid is this far open. I consider that to be childish and meaningless and creates nothing but frustrated people. Our condo down south, I can throw a mountain of stuff beside the bin and they pick it up. I'm not saying that's right. I'm telling you that's what happens. So to not pick a bin up because the lid is cracked a little bit makes no sense to me. It's meaningless. It's a pointless discussion. I do think that if the bin is so full, it spills as it's being lifted, that the trucker should immediately call our maintenance enforcement people, and that household should immediately get a ticket, because that is to be discouraged. So that's my rant. I'll be quiet for now, but be careful with how you set and enforce this lid thing. I think you annoy a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macon.
Thank you. So one of the things I don't want to do is speculate on the need for a second bin. I don't think that we have a ton of second bins in our community. I think the number is relatively small. But that second bin could be because that particular household has an excess amount of medical waste, which has been brought to my attention before as well. So as long as it's cost recovery, because I highly do not support subsidizing the use of a second cart. and that we continue to educate our community, and the audit helps us do things like that, then I'm good with that. But I certainly don't want to get into a discussion on whether people need a black bin or not, because we certainly don't know their situation. So I'll support the motion. I think it should be cost recovery and not on anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abatoye.
Thank you. Sadie, do we not operate a utility model where you're not allowed to charge clients more than the actual cost? Like, we can't just say that we're going to charge them $20 just because.
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, so our utility model right now excludes the second black cart just because we don't want it to feed into everybody's monthly rate. It was approved by council and proposed by administration as a distinct cost that was always intended to be full cost recovery. So it doesn't feed into our utility model at all.
Okay. So what's the current rate then? So we're increasing to $17.20, but what's the current rate for a second black bean?
The current 2023 rate is $13.24, and the proposed 2024 rate in your budget document was $14.50.
Okay. So at $17.20, it will be fully paid for by the users.
That is
Okay,
correct.
perfect. Thank you. I support the motion.
All right, I have one more. Do you say no if someone's asked for a third bin? Is that not allowed? I hope.
Through your worship to Councillor Blizzard, in the fees and charges document, it specifies maximum one additional black cart.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, not seeing any other questions. Back to Mayor Gail Ketcher for a close.
Great, thank you very much. So I think there is pretty well consensus or a mindset that people should be paying for the service if they're getting it. So I'm good with that. And I think, this will be a little bit, with the other charges that are coming on, hopefully a little bit of a wake-up call that maybe it's time for them to start assessing whether they need the second bin or not. And let's, we'll look at the fees again next year. And if we continue after the waste audit, if you keep telling us that we've got these offenders out there, then we look at the fees at that point in time again. Okay.
All right, the motion is now closed. Please cast your votes.
Whoops, sorry. It's carried unanimously.
Yeah. Okay, that motion is carried unanimously.
Okay.
Back to Mayor Gail.
Thank you. So we will continue on. The next one is utility wastewater rate. Councillor Kelly.
Your Worship.
I thought we were going to do something first.
Yeah, if I could just interject, Your Worship. The intent was to do flag 11 prior to flag 10.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry, I missed that. Okay, so we will go to number 11, contributions first. Councillor Noyen.
Yeah, thanks. I have a couple questions after reading the flagged information document. So essentially, the initial proposal for reserve contributions are to cover secondary water line and offset the capital need of Arrow Utilities requests this year. Is that basically fair to say that that's what our reserves are covering? I'm sorry, and obviously about obviously they cover the infrastructure maintenance, life cycle replacement as well. But yeah, in this report, we're talking about these two larger capital projects.
Through your worship to Councillor Noyen, yes, the demands on our reserves over the next couple of years, as you mentioned, just regular neighborhood rehab. We also have the capital and design requirements for the alternative water line, as well as servicing the annexed lands and the water tower refurbishment.
Right, and so front end servicing for annex lands. What portion or what's an optimal balance within the reserve for that? What are we looking at?
Through your worship, I don't believe we have set costs yet, but Miss Smith-Duguid might be able to correct me.
Your worship, Sadie's correct. We don't have estimates at this time.
Okay, so we're just trying to cushion the reserve basically to in anticipation of this cost in the near future, would probably within 5 years. Okay, yeah, and I look forward to some discussion from council with this, and we'll make a motion after that.
Okay, so we'll questions. So I'll go next. So I guess the question that we talk about these projects that are coming up, basically it's water projects that we're talking about that go in with neighborhood rehab. Are there any additional grants from the provincial or federal government that supports projects such as this? As these, so if municipality requires a second water line, Ms. Smith?
Your worship, maybe I can help Sadie with this one. We have investigated some grant programs that exist, and we have low optimism that we would be eligible for those.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Councillor Nguyen?
Yeah, but perhaps I won't make a motion then. So if we keep it as it is in the budget, then so scenario number 1 is what we're proposing. So everything is transferred to reserve from utility rate increases. Then that's correct.
Through your worship to Councillor Nguyen, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we will move on. Go back to number 10, utilities wastewater rate. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. I do have a couple motions on this particular subject. If we could, let's start with what I had as number 1, please. I'm not going to, do I need to read the motion, Mayor Catcher?
Because we are live streamed, yes.
Okay, no problem. I move that council direct Mayor Catcher to send a letter to the Board of Directors of Aero Utilities. This letter to describe the strong concerns of council regarding the proposed rate increases and the apparent lack of long-term capital planning.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept that motion. You may speak to it.
You bet. Aero, at least I received, I think all of council received what I believe is a 2-page flyer or info card on the rate increases. I will admit that when it first came out, I merely glanced at it. I was a bit alarmed when I looked at it a second time. And let me describe why. Mr. Fleming, it's my understanding, or Sadie, either one of you, that the budget as prepared used the 173 forecasted 24 rate from Aero Utilities, 173 per cube. I think that's correct, right?
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, that is correct.
And subsequent to that, at some point in time, you were notified that the rate wouldn't be $1.73, but $1.85.
That is correct.
Which is a rate in 23 of $1.50, and now our last update is $1.85, a 33% increase in 1 year on that particular line item. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Along in this info package, there's some comments that cause me concern. I understand that the Waste Management Commission has struggled with some premature obsolescence, and that was also discussed when I was first on council in 2017. So it's been going on for a while now. There should be no surprise. I did spend some time on the board, 1 year only, but about 3 years ago, I think. And during that tenure, there was no discussion about the need or imminent need for a plant expansion. There's some other comments here that caused me the question. We've negotiated an agreement with a hydrogen producer to sell them post plant expansion. So I don't know what part of this proposed rate increase is to go toward the desire or whether or not it's even desirable to treat fluid to remove hydrogen. But I'm not convinced that that's within their mandate at this particular juncture. I'm also concerned that in 24, they state they will enlist a consultant to build a utility master plan for rural utilities that is inclusive of an asset management program. I would have thought that that would be done already. It goes on to say we will adjust our budget practices to improve our capital reserves programs, shift budget timelines to allow member municipalities more lead time, and provide more regular communication. That would be nice. Could have also happened half a dozen years ago. So I'm a little frustrated as an individual councillor, and I know that the City of Leduc Council approved a letter that I believe every member of council received that used some fairly strong words to express their dismay with this announcement. It is my desire that this council do the same thing. And I welcome comments. Let's see what everybody thinks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris.
Councillor Kelly, your points are extremely well taken, and I will ensure that if this motion were to pass, I will convey our council position to the rest of the board members. Some of what you raised obviously makes some sense. We are at the point with the capital planning that we're having to address deficiencies that have arisen over time. Up until quite recently, the asset management plan of the board was ultimately to respond reactively to the problems that were happening with the line, primarily going over to St. Albert to deal with St. Albert and Spruce Grove and Stony Plain, because it was a concrete line and hydrogen sulfide was building up in the line. And with reduced water consumption, it actually has exacerbated that problem in terms of asset degradation. And so it's been kind of a reactionary thing. And so it's just recently come to the point where we needed to look at the overall asset management plan of the collection transmission system more so than anything else. But you raise the issue about looking at selling water to a plant that will ultimately produce hydrogen from that water. We have had, and we earlier this year had a conversation about the expansion, what we call our Train 4 expansion, which will ultimately be a new type of treatment, wastewater treatment, which is a membrane treatment methodology as opposed to a biological nutrient removal, which is what the plant was ultimately designed and built to provide that level of treatment. The expansion of the plant that is currently undergoing, and which the board did approve, was aimed at ultimately responding proactively in relation to growth in the community, because the plant ultimately does have to be expanded going forward to handle growth in the region, and ultimately allow us to be able to respond to the fact that the province is going to issue a new operating permit at the end of next year. And we strongly anticipate that the requirement for the new type of treatment will be a requirement to remove various elements that are in the wastewater stream that is going back into the North Saskatchewan River. So the plant expansion that ultimately is required meets those needs going forth, both from growth and from an effluent treatment standard. And there is a cost to doing that. Now, the rate itself is going up because we are on the horns of a dilemma. We had to retender our utility response in terms of both gas and power, and we saw a $500,000 increase. So inflation is impacting the wastewater commission as much as it is municipalities, all municipalities, and everybody else. And so that is largely reflective in what we are seeing by way of an increased rate. Should we have been building up our reserves over time? Undoubtedly and absolutely. And as a member of the board, I have been advocating, as a number of my colleagues have, about the things that we need to do to be more proactive in relation to ensuring that we have the appropriate reserves so that we can minimize the impact to rate. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of the board and the discussions from a capital and operating standpoint. We ultimately have a new CEO, and that CEO is moving aggressively to ensure that we can put in place proactive measures to reduce the impact to our rate and to the utility subscribers that ultimately we service as a member of the board. So if this passes, I will definitely use my voice at the board to ultimately express the council's concern. But again, we've got some very challenging circumstances to deal with, and the board ultimately will work to ensure that we can do the planning to address these things going forward. There will be better communication with our administrations to make sure that voice is appropriately communicated in a more proactive and timely manner. And I believe that moving more aggressively in terms of asset management planning will ultimately be, as we have been doing here at the City of Fort Saskatchewan, to ensure that that there aren't these shocks that come forward. So I'll do my best to relay that to the rest of the board.
Okay, thank you. I'm next on the speaking order. I will support this motion, and it's correct that County of Leduc, I believe it was, did send a letter in as well. And I think if all of the members actually started sending letters in, if that was the case, because they do have a member of council sitting on the board, that it might be taken more seriously than maybe just one letter or two, because what we find in life is those who are silent go about silently complaining, and those who voice their opinion will have an opportunity to express their concerns. And it's also my understanding that they haven't taken a meeting with you at this point in time.
Your Worship, they haven't, but the City of Fort Saskatchewan has not explicitly requested a meeting.
Okay, I would think that I thought that was the question that was asked at our last one, and it was said, no, they won't meet with you until the new year.
Your Worship, and councillors, I actually was kicking myself after I said that. So Fort Saskatchewan never reached out to request that meeting, but other municipalities have, and they were all provided with that response.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, I will support this. Councillor Blizzard?
So by writing this letter, and I'm for it, will this include, or can we add to it to mail this to other affected communities and encourage them to also send a letter?
Yes, and I intended to put that in there and did not. Sorry. Yes, thank you. And I intended to put that in the motion and omitted it. So yes, absolutely.
So Mr.
Make an
Kaiser,
amendment?
Absolutely.
well, he can just add it as a friendly.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, are you still?
No, I'm done.
You're done? Okay, Councillor Macon?
Thank you. I will support the motion. The impact of such, like, I don't actually see it impacting a change in that rate. I do believe that they have come to us with that rate for a reason, and I do trust that that is what is needed. What I think could be gained, I guess, is our expectation going forward of the future capital planning and ensuring that we have the right resources in place for that, communication with the municipalities that it affects, and certainly it's not a good look to bring such a substantial increase and then also say, but we're not going to meet with you until after the new year. I think that certainly does not help the situation. It certainly doesn't alleviate the frustration. It only adds to it. So I don't believe it's going to change the monetary value. I trust that is a fair ask of what they need, but it certainly shouldn't, I don't believe, be communicated as it did. So I will support the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Fleming?
Yeah, through your worship, sorry, I want to go backwards. I think it was 2 questions, but so in fairness to the commission, I did actually just get an email. All the CAOs in the region just got an email after the motion was moved saying there's been a reach out to the CAOs saying if you do want to get together and talk. So I think there will be some discussion amongst the commission manager, whatever the position name is, and some of the CAOs. So I want it to be fair to Aero Utilities that there's been a they had previously sent out blanket communications saying they weren't taking meetings with municipalities prior to the end of the year, which is why we didn't ask. But now there's been a change in their approach. So I just wanted to make sure that was out there.
Thank you. So round 2, Councillor Harris.
Well, the clarification there is that the CEO did not say that she wouldn't meet with municipalities, but just the timing is we have a meeting tomorrow. Our budget meeting for 2024 is tomorrow morning. And so the rate is tentative at this point in time. So until the board actually votes on it tomorrow, it's really not in place yet. So this is all communication from that standpoint. Could the communication have been better? I suppose so, and in hindsight, absolutely. Going forward, it will change, and I, as the city's member on the board, will ensure that that voice is appropriately communicated. Just practically, from that standpoint, the budget will be approved or reviewed and approved tomorrow. The rate will be established tomorrow. And what the CEO and the chair were saying is that it would make more sense to have a communication in the new year, because ultimately, if we do it at the end of this month, December's a write-off in terms of getting in front of anybody to do anything. And with 13 municipalities, that's that's something we want to put into an appropriate planning context to have a fruitful and a fulsome discussion about everything that we need to be cognizant of from a board perspective. So that's the clarification. So there was no refusal to meet with. So any supposition of that is incorrect. It was a question of just the communication, the sensitivity of this. The board has to do what the board has to do in the interests of the board, and so I have to wear 2 hats, as all the members do. You have to wear a council hat, and you have to wear a board hat. And looking at the long-term capacity of the commission to meet the wastewater treatment needs of the 13 municipalities, and to handle growth, and to handle environmental considerations in terms of effluent discharge, those are all reasons why we're at where we're at. We've also had the recruitment of a new CEO, and to look back retrospectively to suggest that these things should have changed, should have been better planning, of course, absolutely. And I think we can look at our experience with other utility commissions and suggest that that is definitely something that we could benefit from. Obviously, within the water context, there is a significant opportunity to improve in that regard. So I will be the city's voice to take that back to my colleagues tomorrow and to express that. And it's not lost on any of the other members. This is a very sensitive subject, And the board will definitely take that into consideration in our discussions tomorrow, and I will communicate that effectively.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly on close.
I'm not going to spend, actually, I'm sorry, I do want to have another question. Could you please let council know what the budget impact to our residents is going to be when you, I think you now have to necessarily modify the budget that we saw to include a $1.85 rate. So what effect is that going to have?
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, if you look on the screen, the proposed 2024 dollar values are what is included in your budget document, and the revised 2024 values include the removal of the manager of sustainability position, as well as the amendment to the proposed fee for sewer.
So built into that rate is the removal of that one budget request that we've already removed?
That is correct.
So this change would be larger had you not accommodated that budget savings into it. I was looking for the net effect of the rate change for sewer alone.
Through your worship, we don't have that as a standalone value.
Okay, and that's fine.
It is included though, right? So we factored it in.
I know, but we also factored in a reduction in cost because of other decisions that this council made or that we reached. Okay. I think it was kind of hinted that perhaps we could use reserves and not pass this along. I'm not prepared to do that as one councillor. I think we should pass this on and let people know that every time they turn on the tap, it's costing them money. It really is. The other question I had, Sadie, is in their information somewhere in here, they refer to the average household, I think, consuming 15 cubes a month. I'm trusting my memory when I say that, but I think that was in 14? Whatever, that's 15 is a good number. I'm a family of two, and I don't ever remember consuming 15 cubes a month. What would be the normal expectation for a younger family with two kids in school and two parents at home? What would be the average consumption for some household like that? Do you have that number or an estimate that you could share with us?
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, I'm actually going to invite Brad McDonald up to answer that.
Perfect.
Good morning, Council, through your worship. So the 14 cubic meters a month is a citywide average of water consumption divided by the number of households. Looking at the sort of high and low end of that spectrum, a small, on the low end, a small family of one or two people, maybe using 10 cubic meters a month or less. A family of four, maybe using 20 to 25 cubic meters a month. And then for example, on seasonal usage, if you're watering your lawn or filling a pool or a hot tub or things like that, we do see consumption approaching 40 or 50 cubic meters a month on the residential side.
And do we pay wastewater rates on the irrigation water that the city uses for city property?
Through your worship, yes, we do. The commission looks at the incoming water to the city as a whole, and that is how we calculate the water going to the commission. So every cubic meter of water coming in, we pay the sewer commission going out, and we bill accordingly.
I'm well aware of what it costs me personally when I irrigate my lawn. It's eye-opening, eye-watering anymore, to be honest. Do we have any idea what it actually costs the city for the irrigation programs that we operate?
Through your worship, we could likely calculate that. We do meter our own water. I do not have that number off the top of my head.
And I would like to suggest that it might be worthwhile. It gets back to, I think, a comment at least once that Councillor Harris has made, that maybe there should be a dual rate for summer usage. I do know, again, based on my one term of service on the wastewater commission, that municipalities can apply for exemptions for certain things. I think they tend to look at those as one-ofs and one-time exemptions, but it might make sense to track it. If we're paying another $1 million in waste fees for water that's hitting the ground, it would be worth knowing, obviously, Brad. So I take it as just a friendly request, and let's try to do something on that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your response.
Okay.
Not quite done. This is my close, right?
Well, yeah, it's your close, but now Councillor Harris is
Oh, absolutely, certainly. I can pause.
Okay. Councillor Harris?
There is a cost to each member municipality, and that cost has to be collected in some manner. So water has been it's been the proxy for how that cost will be allocated on a per cubic meter basis. The city of Lethbridge, and I have brought this to the attention of our administration, the city of Lethbridge, for example, which operates water and wastewater treatment in its own right, does have a summer and winter rate. And it's reflective of the fact that a lot of water is consumed in the summer that doesn't go into the wastewater stream. And so they have a lower rate for wastewater depending on the time of the year. But the fact remains here is that you're going to have a higher rate on less or a lower rate on more, whatever the case may be. And so that's the horns of the dilemma there, as I understand it. So I had brought that to administration's attention. We had a conversation, didn't go anywhere. And I would suggest that we could probably look at and continue to look at it. And then all you'd be doing is you'd be saying is that based on the fact that less water is going down the drain in the summer, you'd have a lower rate in the summer rate. And I'm not sure how we would actually do that, but it is possible, and the city of Lethbridge does it. And I asked for some research to that effect, but I don't know where that went. If anywhere, Mr. Fleming could respond to that. But again, we have to figure out the best way to allocate the costs. And right now, water consumption is the proxy that is used in all municipalities. And Mr. McDonald could indicate if there is a better way to do it. And I would leave it to him to comment on that, or Ms. Miller.
I don't. Mr. Fleming, is there a comment on that, or?
Just through your worship, we did appreciate Councillor Harris passing that along, and we did go and we took a look at the readily available information from the city of Lethbridge, but a philosophical change of that magnitude in the work that would go along with it was, I think that was kind of notice motion territory, which I'm happy to help with anytime we want to move forward.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Kelly for his final close.
I'll try to make it short. And thank you, Councillor Harris, for the comments. I was aware of how the Wastewater Commission charges, and it is based on water purchases for the city as a whole. I do think, though, that, and I understand Mr. Fleming's comment, absolutely, it's notice of motion territory. I'm not at that stage yet, but it's getting close. I think you could easily calculate based on household consumption what is winter and what is summer, and allow a margin so that there's no mistake. And what that does do is it then means that those that consume pay that cost. The same discussion we had when it come to the second waste bin. I get it, there's a cost to treating wastewater. I absolutely get it. But I'm not sure that I need to pay that cost when I irrigate my lawn. And I remain to be convinced on that. So I'll leave it at that, though. I think we got consensus. Good discussion, by the way. Call a question, please.
Okay, the motion is now closed. Please cast your vote. And that is carried unanimously. So the next item we have is sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Catcher. I do have a second motion that I'd like to get on the table so that council can discuss. And it is number 2, Jen, please. I move the council instruct Mayor Catcher to prepare and deliver a letter to Arrow Utilities requesting that Arrow Utilities General Manager attend a council meeting as soon as possible. The General Manager would be invited to discuss the proposed rate increases, the lack of long-term capital asset planning, a risk analysis of the current Arrow Utilities rate schedule, and the Arrow Utilities current 10-year capital budget.
Okay, I'll accept that motion. Do you need to speak to it?
Yeah, I don't think we need to add a lot more other than Councillor Harris alluded to several things that are now been started, and I appreciate that. I do think, though, that it would behoove the CEO or general manager, I'm not sure what the correct term for her position is at this moment, but nonetheless, the general manager to visit our council and give us an update on what's going to happen, when we can expect it to happen. I would like to be able to question the expansion, because like I said, 3 years ago when I sat on that commission board, there was no discussion whatsoever about the need for a plant expansion. I would like to be able to ask questions relating to the proactive approach, and I appreciate proactivity, I truly do, but why is it proactive this year? Not 3 years ago or not 3 years in the future. I'd like to hear some better information and detail on that particular subject. So what's driving the decision today, and what are our risks going forward? And I do believe that given the rate increase this year, as we now understand it, and the proposed rate increase for 25, which is again up significantly, that it behooves the CEO and perhaps the board chair to visit each council, each member, and inform everybody as to what's going on and what our KPIs are going to be going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's open for discussion and debate. Councillor Harris.
Councillor Kelly, totally understand where you're coming from on this, and ultimately communication and discussion is the best way to ensure that there isn't misunderstanding. The CEO, which is her new term, inherited a situation, I guess looking back reflectively, coulda would, shoulda would, but didn't change in the past 3 years ago. You're talking about in terms of plant expansion. Part of that is to deal with growth. Part of it is to deal with environmental context in terms of the return of wastewater to the North Saskatchewan River. And we're being, I guess, proactive in relation to that. And that's where this plant expansion is coming from. But by all means, the chair and the CEO are prepared to come out to our municipality. I suspect that there are a number of things that I would suggest should remain in camera, because there are some things that are, I guess, call it competitive, if you will, that ultimately we would want to talk about in terms of part of the reason for the plant expansion, and some of the things that we are not prepared to talk about in the public domain yet, but we will. And so I would anticipate that's not going to happen before Christmas, and that it will likely be in the new year, and that I will ensure that that I communicate that to my colleagues, and so that we have an appropriate communication strategy at the board level to start to ensure or to be better at communication with our member municipalities. So I will take that under advisement and work to that context. So if this passes, so be it.
Okay, thank you. I'm next on the speaking order. This is something that we used to do on a regular basis, I don't know how many years ago, for all of our boards and committees. And have the majority, have them come and speak to council at set dates through committee of the whole so that we could ask more questions. And as you've noted, we've had Heartland come in, we've had the policing come in, library boards been in, you know, so really, and Edmonton Global has spoke to us, Edmonton Metro has spoke to us and are scheduled. So I think it's just something that we need to get back in the habit with the ones who are charging us some of the biggest fees, that they are in front of us at least once, if not twice a year, so that there's no surprises when it comes to budget time, and that we can ask questions and we can provide our comments. So I think this one just further goes beyond just Arrow Utilities, but it's a reminder that they all should be in front of us. And I think that's something we just need to get scheduled. So I will support this one. Councillor Kelly on close.
Mayor Catcher, I'm certain that we have agreement on this one, so call a question, please.
All right, the motion is now closed. Please cast your vote. And that is carried unanimously. Okay, we're going to move to number 7, which we need to go in camera for. So I will take a motion to go in camera. Councillor Abatoye. Whoops. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we go in camera as per FOIP.
Okay, thank you. The motion is closed. Please cast your vote. That is carried unanimously. So take 5 minutes for any comfort break, and then we'll get started at 11:21. It will depend. Don't shut anything down. If there's a motion that comes out of this, we would have to come back, but I don't know. Your choice.